Hello everyone, welcome to Eternal Brews. My name is Myriad, and we've just finished our first stream of Behemoths of Thera. We went 12 hours. It was a delightful time. Feel free to check out the VODs of that on our Twitch if you are interested. And we'll be streaming again pretty soon. I think probably Friday evening at 6:30 PST, or possibly even tonight at 11 PST. I have to sort of check on my schedule stuff, but I think we've got a good chance of getting into that. We have a new deck for you today. There's a lot of hunt shenanigans to be further explored, but this is our ladder climb list for the first part of the ladder, and just sort of getting back into the game. It's also a simple deck that we can build with fairly few legendaries, like we're only using promo cards and rares, and I don't think we have any legendary. I might be wrong about that, but this is Shot in the Dark. It is an aggro Nightfall list, and playing around with Nightfall again, which is one of my favorite mechanics. There's a lot of cool stuff that's been added to the format, and a couple of cards that we really want to talk about here. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first things first, we built this deck based off of some of our interactions with Thundershot, a card that deals 6 damage if you have 3 or more units. And the basic idea behind Thundershot, of course, is if we have a pretty good board advantage, but we're stalled out, we can just Thundershot an opponent's face for 6 damage and do a pretty significant amount of damage. However, the idea's evolved a little bit more from that. There's definitely some other cool things that we're going to be playing around with. We're going to be talking about in terms of Nightfall aggro in general as we get into it. So, first things first, this is a deck about efficient, really easily statted units for their cost. We have a lot of very good drops at 1 and 2 and 3. Most of them trigger Nightfall, which means that because they have Nightfall, they tend to have like a little bit of a bonus stat due to some Nightfall benefits. Key in this list is Lithrai Darkstalker. This is a core card. It has always been like a really important Nightfall card because it is just a very well statted unit, provided it's at night. And when it's not night, it's not well statted at all, and it doesn't actually do anything. But Lithrai Darkstalker has been a fairly solid core card for Nightfall decks previously, and now we have some really interesting new Nightfall cards, such as Twilight Lantern, which deals double damage on its turn if you have drawn your second card in a turn, which is a thing that always happens if you have Nightfall triggered. Okay, so beyond that, we are using this card Obstinate Rat. It is a 2-cost 4/3, which is a big ol' pile of stats, but can't attack or block unless you have another unit with 7 or more strength. Notably, our best 7 or more strength units are our 3-drops, and Lithrai Darkstalker is one of the strongest one of these with 8 full points of health. So, Obstinate Rat and Darkstalker both sort of provide that sort of general attack value. Obstinate Rats can also trigger off of each other, and they can trigger off of Midnight Trapper and a couple of other cards in the list. So we're playing very aggressive 2-drops, and we're trying to get like really into like sort of some early game. Then we slam Darkstalkers, and we attack with the rats, and we do a lot of other stuff with that. It's a fun time. At the bottom, we have Bloodseekers, 1-cost 2/3, very simple, very hard to deal with. By stacking a lot of high health units and a lot of units that have like really effective stats, or just like efficient stats rather, for their cost, we basically make it so that it's very hard for our opponent to keep up with the constant pressure that's being played. When you're playing an all Nightfall deck, or a deck with a lot of Nightfall triggers, what typically happens is that both players are going to hit their power very consistently. They're going to hit their drops very consistently, and they're going to spend all their power every turn. So what we want to be doing is playing our power more efficiently than our opponent, and basically just always putting more threats down on the board than our opponent can handle. To that end, we involve a little bit of combo stuff, like Obstinate Rat and Darkstalker. Another one that we play around with is Feed the Hecaton. This card exhausts a unit with 7 or more strength to make them sacrifice an additional unit, but it can also just hit an Aegis unit, get rid of something that's kind of annoying, and make it so that they're like not particularly like, you can just make them sacrifice 1 unit if they throw down something big and scary that's going to like mess with your current aggressive actions. Notably, Feed the Hecaton triggers off of Obstinate Rat, meaning that at 4 you have a really nice combo here to sort of get some like extra value going on. And there's one more combo that we really want to talk about, which is Midnight Trapper. This card says your spells deal +2 damage at night. That, of course, boosts your Thundershots up to 8, if that's a thing that you're interested in. It triggers Nightfall every time that it attacks and hits the enemy player, which is a medium effect. It synergizes with Obstinate Rat, but most importantly, it synergizes with Beaker Blast, a 1-cost red card that we are using to either remove threats or kill our opponent at the very end of a game. This card deals double damage if you have 2 red influence, and when we're playing with 3 colors and a couple of seats, we tend to have that double red influence fairly quickly, so we'll often be on turn 4, attacking with a couple of different units, playing a Midnight Trapper, and then Beaker Blasting face for 6 damage, thus getting ourselves a real nice early obliterate type effect and dealing just a lot of damage to our opponent. It's really simple stuff. Like we like this sort of value a lot, and behind all of this sort of just wall of aggressive stats, we have very good burn to sort of reach over the opponent's stuff and basically finish them off after they've gotten control of the situation, if that's the case. In addition, because of Nightfall, our opponents are constantly taking chip damage, so even if all we're doing is trading aggressively over and over again and keeping our opponent on the back foot and they're maintaining their life total, the Nightfall damage combined with something like a double Beaker Blast or a really good Thunder Shot can kind of get us to the place where we're finally going to be like pretty happy with the damage and get that final point. Basically, as long as you can keep your opponent's health low, it makes it harder for them to capitalize off of Nightfall. It makes them more likely to die to Nightfall damage, and it makes it so that your just general stats work out pretty well. The only other spells in the deck are Winter's Grasp, which is really, well, it's not a spell technically, but the only other non-unit cards are Winter's Grasp, which triggers Darkstalkers and disables units, and Bone Music, a card that generates 2 0/2 Maggot Swarms with +1 strength for each unit in your void. This is a really good option for just surprising your opponent with a tremendous amount of damage. If you're really in the thick of it and things are kind of stalling out and your opponent finally like sort of gets a handle on things, they might choose to attack, and if they choose to attack, you can play a Bone Music, get something like 2 7/2 Maggot Swarms, and then swing in for 14 while following up with any other like sort of extra spells that you might have. And it's a powerful time. It definitely works out really well. So all of these like cheap, efficient cards are going to be constantly like getting drawn into your hand due to the extra Nightfall. It's fairly likely that you're going to be holding on to multiple burn spells and more units than you can handle, and all of that just works out pretty well. We have a couple of Ranias at the top as well. This card is just good for dealing with the big threats that we can't deal with. Big hunt decks are actually like fairly likely. I sometimes run 3 of these and 2 Thunder Shots depending on what we're feeling, but yeah, like this is a card that basically just allows you to steal, kill, and mess with your opponent's blocking strategies. It also allows you to recover some health if you are in a situation where you're doing constant trading and the Nightfall damage and Bloodseeker damage is starting to get the better of you. But yeah, this is really simple aggro. It's very fun. It's got a lot of like really efficient cards in it, and I think it's pretty well tuned. So we're gonna jam a couple games, show off how it plays, and then yeah, that'll be the deck video. Yeah, so stay tuned and let's play some games. All right, here we are up against my skill and my gun. Our opening hand has a good amount of influence. A card that I forgot to mention in the intro video is we are looking for a particular Nightfall. It's called a Midnight Reprieve, I think, and it just triggers Nightfall while also getting us a power of our choice. That's how we're able to run 3-color aggro in the first place, and it also allows additional Nightfall triggers for stuff like Obstinate Rat. I'd say this hand looks pretty good. The 2 Obstinate Rats are not like amazing on their own, and I don't have any Nightfall triggers, but the fact that my power is pretty consistent, and I've got like, you know, I'm on the draw, so I'm going to get at least 1 more card here. I think just getting some Obstinate Rats down early certainly feels right, and as long as we're spending our power efficiently, we're going to feel pretty happy. I could even use Beaker Blast to like kill a 1 health unit, since we are kind of just sitting tight for a moment. Okay, so we play an Obstinate Rat, and then next turn we play another Obstinate Rat, and then we can attack in with the first Obstinate Rat, which is not bad. A 4/3 attacking on turn 2. We don't feel too bad about that. Hour of Linray is definitely not a offensive card, so we are in a good situation there. The thing we have to really worry about here, I think, is specifically the Hailstorm, Heavy Hail. It's a pretty nasty card. It does a lot of damage. If we're triggering enough Nightfalls, we don't care too much about big sweepers, but obviously this could be kind of a devastating sweeper if it comes out at exactly this moment. All right. And if it doesn't come out at this moment, we deal 8 damage to their face, which I feel pretty good about that. Now, notably, on 4 power, we have a couple of different options. Lethrai Marauder just plays like a Formbend or a Blood Hunt. Yeah, okay. If you're discarding a card for a Blood Hunt, I think we just kill that. That saves our rats and also gets us into a better spot overall. If they'd gone for the Dark Elf, that might have been like a bit more of a problem. But yeah, that card's pretty efficient. This is another contender for the list. Lithrai Marauder is a reasonable choice if you are missing some commons or rares here. And you can play this in the aggro deck and get some pretty good value out of it. We have a little too much discard in general, so I haven't been going for that, but it's definitely fine. Okay, Tenebrous Bone Picker is nice. It's going to be like a 3-2. I think Nocturnal Glider is a little better here and allows for like a little bit more leeway on whatever the Nightfall trigger is. First things first, let's just attack, get our 8 damage in. Then we play our Nocturnal Glider, that triggers Nightfall, and now we can start refreshing our hand with more cards to play so that we're consistently playing like good drops. And as you can see, our opponent's already on 12, it's turn 5, and like they've even tried to defend themselves, but we've got some good stuff going on. Grand Excursion, gonna make a big unit, but not going to make a problem for us. Like, we can just feed the Hecaton here. I can't feed the Hecaton, actually, because it's got that face Aegis. Seed Tender is a rough card for us in some respects. But, I mean, here I think we just trade. There's no reason not to. I could use Feed the Hecaton to pop the Aegis, but I think I'll wait until I have, like, a little bit more to play with. For now, let's attack in. We're going to lose one rat, and that's going to mean the other one doesn't get to attack anymore because we don't have a good support for it. But as long as we're still playing Nightfalls, we're fairly likely to find Darkstalkers or other things that can actually trigger it. In addition, our opponent is at 4. They're taking a Nightfall damage next turn, and that, you know, kind of puts them in a pretty bad spot. If you play slow against aggro, you die. That's just sort of how this works. As you can see, like, they played a decent amount of cards. They're definitely trying to build into a good controlling list. Probably play around with some hunt cards, do some like weird shenanigans with Oros, I think he's called. But they're not going to get the chance because they're just going to be dead. Also, they've somehow destroyed their own Aegis. I'm not actually sure how that happened. Let's see. Grand Excursion. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. I think it was something like
Can't escape now.
Lipa, maybe. Wow, yeah. I don't know why their Aegis disappeared. That's very interesting.
A forest of blades.
Forest Blades. But like, okay, so they've got 3 blockers right now. That would be a problem. But they don't have an Aegis, and that is a big deal. Oh, the Beaker Blast did it, I think, because it was supposed to get Voidbound. We Beaker Blasted a... No, that's not it. All right, I have no idea why they don't have an Aegis. I think I just missed it. Some direct damage. Oh, Hunt. The Hunt from Tenebrous Bone Picker. That's what it is. Hunt pops face Aegises, which opens them up for Beaker Blasts and other things. I just couldn't find it. Okay, so notably, the Obstinate Rat can't attack this turn because we don't have a good unit for it. But what it can do is feed the Hecaton. So we force our opponent to sacrifice 2 units. Obviously, like, they're going to lose everything but, like, the one that's necessary. We get to attack in. I didn't get the Hunt off, but I do get to deal 2 damage, and now the next Nightfall trigger kills them, which is pretty great. So, swing in. I think we just see a block in the air. We might see a forfeit here. And then I think we play Bloodseeker. It would be nice if we could trigger another Nightfall here. It would be good if we had like a Midnight Reprieve or something. Notably, because we've been trading so much material, Bloodseeker's up to a 4/5, and a 4/5 for 1 is a hard card to deal with, especially when you're already on the back foot trying to deal with other stuff. It also means that the Obstinate Rat is now able to attack again, so I've got 3 threats on the board, and my opponent has 1 health. So even if we don't get to Nightfall, pretty likely to win this one. Wisdom of the Elders, good times. This card is very, very strong in the current format. 2/3 is decently powerful for 1 and always has been, but the +2/+2 for each player with 10 or more cards in their void is really important because it triggers off of your opponent's hunts on you, and it also triggers off of like your hunts and like any like trades that you're doing in aggro. So this thing can get up to a 6/7 reasonably reliably if the game goes along, and that's definitely not a bad place to put your 1-drops. It's not going to do it immediately. It's not going to do it like with enough reliability that it should be the core of the deck, but it is nonetheless like a really, really strong card for this type of setup. Yeah, and that's the power aggro. Let's see if we can get some videos of the burn, but yeah, there we go. Alright, here we are. We're up against Spifferific. I see Seed of Chaos, Seed of Cunning. I see Bloodseeker. I think this is a little inefficient, but because we have good Nightfall stuff and we can play Bloodseeker on 2, it's probably worth keeping. I just seat, play Bloodseeker, play Bone Picker, Twilight Lantern. Usually Twilight Lantern before Bone Picker, because the Twilight Lantern does a little more damage, but
Try to make
both
this
are reasonable options.
interesting.
And also, Twilight Lantern needs a little more setup. You have to actually draw the second card in a turn, which means it's not going to be quite as efficient. Okay, that's totally fine. So Twilight Lantern triggers Nightfall. We missed a power here, which is going to hurt us a little bit in the long run, but have a decent chance of being okay.
Revel in the shadow.
Wing Brewer might be worth Beaker Blasting here. Especially since we have a Bone Picker to play. Yeah, I think we Beaker Blast, we play a Bone Picker, that way we trigger a second Nightfall. And we're looking okay. If I get more power, I've got Rania available. Lithrai Darkstalker is going to be pretty powerful. And if we draw 2 drops, we can pair them with Winter's Grasp to keep a pretty efficient turn. Slay, good fast spell, lots of shenanigans. Go ahead and play a Darkstalker here, but first we're gonna slam this down. So Rania seems pretty likely to win the game at this point. Gift to the Orc Bank gets them 2 Minotaurs with Taunt,
Enjoy your stay.
which have like +2 something. If I steal one of them with Rania, we're pretty much done. But I think it's easier here to go Nocturnal Glider, play Winter's Grasp, and keep Rania for our last turn. Ideally our best turn. Now, Torgoth will get our Beaker Blast, which is a little bit rough if there's a Torgoth here. But if there is a Torgoth, then we get to play Rania, and that should be enough to induce lethal. So we'll see. A second Gift to the Auric Bank.
Enjoy your
That's 2 more blockers. And now we get to do the fun thing, which is, should do it first, in fact. So, play Midnight Trapper. It's currently night, so we do Beaker Blast for 6. We just attack for 4. Sold. And that's the burn combo. It allows us to play material on the board, deal a bunch of face damage, or kill just a very big unit, and then we just get like a lot of like straight aggression in, which is super, super good. And always nice to beat a Torgoth deck before it plays Torgoth. Alright, we got Mo Beta. I'm looking at a Seed of Fury, Seed of Cunning, Bloodseeker, Feed the Hecaton, Beaker Blast. This looks like a pretty good start. So, this is like a standard aggressive grind deck. People can build around it in the meta if they need to, since it is like very straightforward. It is basically like people gain a lot of health off of cards like Krogar and other things like that. If they are fiddling around with like more defensive options and generally like putting themselves on defense, then they are more likely to win the game. But in any situation where the meta is slow, this is a really good option to basically just grind your way up to a higher rank. So we play the Bloodseeker here for sure. We've got the campus security stuff going on. This is an interesting card, definitely an odd one to play around with. But because it's so weapon dependent, it tends to fall pretty easily to Feed the Hecaton. We can also, of course, use Beaker Blast or Winter's Grasp to kill it if we have the right situation. Beaker Blast only deals 2, but with extra damage from our Midnight Trapper, we'd be okay. Alright, cull the deck, that's a nice slow play. I can use Feed the Hecaton here to just kill the campus security, and I think it's appropriate to do so even if it's not as efficient as exhausting one of our 2-drops. So, go ahead and do that. That kills their 1/3, and we can trigger Nightfall next turn. Always slow with the choosing. Alright, here we go. Attack. Winter's Grasp, Beaker Blast. Makes sense. Should be a reasonably good start. Although I could also do Feed the Hecaton too, which I actually think is pretty reasonable here. We've got Rania as our push. So if I do a second Feed the Hecaton here, there's definitely a slow path, but it's more efficient for Feed the Hecaton to be used on units that are played now, and then Winter's Grasp to use on units that are played later. We have another opportunity to draw like a good 3-drop or something that can be played there, and get some advantage out of it. It's not night, so Midnight Trapper Beaker Blast won't work. But I think here we use the Beaker Blast to just deal damage to face. Wreck that weapon, keep our unit alive, and start stacking these voids for our Bloodseekers. Alright, what else you got? Nothing. Alright, so swing for 2, play a Bone Picker, that'll hunt. Fairly likely be a 3-1. Or 3-2, rather. We knocked a Scornful Leaf out, which I'm pretty happy about. That card is super annoying against aggro decks. Shadow Sigil into Tavrod Bankroller. First time a spell is played each turn, you draw a card or play a Minotaur. So draw a card if it was an enemy spell. Now I can avoid this in a couple of different ways. I think it's probably best to just feed the Hecaton and keep pushing. They get to draw another card, but we get to continue to push. And we'll still have Winter's Grasp and Arrhenius up. And I'm not falling into more Tavrod Bankrollers later. Winter's Grasp was a reasonable solution, so is Rania. Both I think are quite good, but here I think I just want to push. This is a pretty slow round.
Open for business.
Winter's Grasp works. Let's do Winter's Grasp into Tenebrous Bone Picker, and if they play another Tavrod, then we just go pretty crazy. Alright, they're at 7. The next unit they play is going to get Raniad, and that'll be lethal. Assuming they're not just dead. Shadow Sigil there.
No loitering.
Black Book. Turn something into a 2-2. No Wrath effects, which is great. Oh, why don't we just Thundershot? Shot in the dark. I get to draw a card, and they're dead. Cool. So yeah, that's the basic idea. We get direct damage across, lots of good aggressive units, good trades, good value with Feed the Hecaton. It's a lot of good cards.deck, but it generally works really well. So yeah, feel free to give this a shot. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. We'll definitely be back with some crazier brews very soon. We get some weird hunt shenanigans already building. But for now, hope you enjoy this Lateran deck, and we'll see you next time. Cheers!